On the Daily Agenda YouTube channel, many of my subscribers have asked me to make more material on Odinism. Well, this is part of Odinism, but not purely about that. I guess you could say it's an explanation, quite frankly, as to why so many nationalists are actually so deeply interested in the Suncross. No, that's not a Celtic cross. That's a Suncross. Yes? Ostensibly, this is a Christian graveyard, but that is a Suncross. Sun cult worship, as I'll explain to you throughout this video. So, let's take a look now at one of the reasons why nationalists are in actual fact so deeply committed to the Suncross, and have been for many decades. It's featured as the iconography of many nationalist organisations in actual fact. Let's have a look at the Suncross. This is one I made whilst living in Sussex, being burned at the midwinter solstice. I say, hail the gods and ancestors. Praise blessed Suna, now risen from the underworld, the burning of the Suncross. All hail. So walk around any old churchyard, any graveyard, and you'll see these pagan sun crosses from the sun cult worship. Apparently they're supposed to be Celtic crosses. In actual fact, they're Celto-Germanic. All cultures on earth have worshipped the sun cross. In fact, I have the sun cross here around my neck, the pagan sun cross. This one's Anglo-Saxon from Kingsfield in Kent, 7th century. This is another derivative of paganism that the Christians took from us and tried to demonize our gods and the sun cross itself by adopting it and turning it into a Celtic cross. So here I am reclaiming it for what it truly is, a pagan sun cross. So I'm here today in Sherwood Forest in Nottinghamshire, yes, the one of Robin Hood fame, where Herne the Hunter was worshipped. The purpose of this documentary is a study of the Suncross. Some people make all manner of speculative theories about how it developed, although the theory that I will put forward in this documentary is that the Suncross, in my opinion, was actually developed from the sun halo, which our ancestors studied, and was most likely also the beginning of the birth of the runes. In my opinion, the best place to find the source of the development of the Suncross is to study images of the sun halo itself. If you actually look at the raft of photographs here in the following slides, you can see the perfect image of Suncross, and our ancestors obviously would have been mesmerized by this and seen this development as something sacred, something to be worshipped, and obviously this is why it became part of the sun cult worship. So the Suncross in itself, it's perfectly obvious basically where it came from, in my mind. Except this may well be a contentious issue, particularly for the snobbish, self-appointed experts, of course, who've come up with no credible answer for the development of the Suncross whatsoever, other than the fact that, in various forms, it appears in practically every single culture on earth. But here we are dealing with our Indo-European ancestors. No one knows for certain when our ancestors started to inscribe Suncross in petroglyph form, like Pagan, for example, in Sweden, although we do know that it was sometime during the Bronze Age. So where did they get the idea from? Why was it so important to them? Well, all life on Earth depends on the sun then and now and every intervening period between. Without the sun, we do not exist. It really is that simple. We can assume, therefore, that the petroglyphs was the first serious attempt to construct artwork and also to enact it in an artistic and ritual sense. for future generations, obviously, to worship. I personally, I've never really bought into the Greek theory that Odin was a Greek scholar who survived the collapse of classical Greece and made his way into Central Europe, carrying with him a Cyrillic script, which then became angular cuts, thus forming the runes. Obviously, we all know the most popular story of how Odin came by the secret of the runes by hanging on Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights. However, there could well be another explanation which fits. If we study some of the Suncross or sun halo images, in actual fact, which have been photographed, you can actually see very strong runic shapes. The outlying arms, particularly on the upper elevation, very clearly form the outline of the Algiz rune. I'm not saying that this is for certain how the runes develop, but you can see there in the sun halo runic shapes and designs. The Suncross, there is absolutely no doubt to my mind, developed directly from our ancestors studying this phenomenon. The Suncross today is everywhere. It's made its way back into popular culture. In fact, did it ever really disappear? Well, not really, no. It went underground because of the Judeo-Christian tyranny and the persecution of pagans or heathens for nearly 1500 years. But the Suncross is back well and truly with a bang. But the concept behind the sun cross, i.e., the sun halo, never really disappeared. It's always been there. This phenomenon continues to this day. It seems today that practically everyone is making some form of sun cross amulet, pendant, ring, inscribed on every form of jewelry one can think of, and onto stone as we seek to imitate our ancestors and honor them. I think mainly because of the major assault on Indo-European culture by hostile cultural Marxist forces. So many people are actually turning back to the ancestral path. And of course, with the strangulation, mass strangulation, or the mass straitjacket of Judeo Christianity having now fallen away, particularly in Western Europe, people are free to explore the ancestral path, and they're doing so in their millions and in increasing numbers every day. And so I would say personally that the Sun Cross, to my mind, seems to have become the most popular icon of modern pagans and heathens. Why is it so popular? As I explained earlier, without the sun, we will all perish, and so therefore we revere Sol or Sunna or Suna. We are merely doing what our ancestors always did. They relied on the sun, we relied on the sun. When there is no sun, we do not feel quite so happy or healthy. The sun is vitally important. Without the sun, no crops. Without the crops, no food. With no food, there is only darkness and death, the destruction. So therefore, the sun cross assumes enormous importance, both in the ancestral context and also in the modern context. And I suggest that we worship the sun cross without any form of politicization.
I should also make it clear that the Suncross has absolutely nothing to do with politics. It is completely apolitical. It's a purely spiritual symbol, or a religious symbol, as some people may call it. Although some people do use it in the political context, we use it specifically in the spiritual context as folkish Odinists.